the issue of the nationalism on the Western Balkans, but also in the EU, is a long-standing one. I would agree with what Professor Spasov said, that nationalism is not new in the Western Balkans. But I think what is new is that it has dominated the European political scene in the past, let's say, past decade in particular. On the Western Balkans, there were always two competing narratives: the narrative of the European integration and the narrative of right-wing nationalism that dominate the conflict or conflictious narrative in the Western Balkans. Usually, when one of them doesn't work, the other dominates. So whenever the European integration as a narrative doesn't work and doesn't show results, then the nationalism, right-wing radical nationalism dominates with conflictious or the narrative of the conflict. That's unfortunately part of the political battle and the cleavage in all of the European societies. What we are witnessing in the past decade, and particularly past several years in France, in Italy, in Hungary, in Germany, as was mentioned, in the Netherlands, in many of the Višegrad Group also countries, is something that is making us think that this is not only a Balkan specialty, but it is now a pan-European battle. And I truly think that it is a pan-European battle. And that pan-European battle gets now at the moment, particularly in the countries of Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, gets a radical form and gets a form in which this political battle becomes societal battle with huge gap between the two parts of the society. Why is this important? I don't think that we can solve the challenge if we don't go to the root. The root is how the politicians, how the mainstream political parties, and how the institutions are dealing with the emotions of the people. Because apparently the politics, not only in the Balkans, but also in the EU, the politics is about emotions. It's not only about plans, it's not only about laws, it's not only about programs, but it is also about emotions. And I think that the rise of the radical nationalism, right-wing nationalism in North Macedonia particularly, was a result of some unaddressed emotions of most of the Macedonian citizens who felt in some way disappointed, in some way played out by the European Union and by parts of the government. I'm not only civil activist, I was for 7 years in the government, so I have a special responsibility also to speak about this. And also, I think that now we need to deal with those emotions and to translate them into action, to translate them into political action that will counter the radical right-wing nationalism. I think that we also have to bear in mind that the EU narrative, the narrative of pro-integration or pro-enlargement narrative, is something that is still valuable and still an asset of the progressive societal groups, because at some point it was in crisis, and I think it's still somehow in crisis, that it's not very popular to talk about European Union and European accession. But if you follow closely, you will see that even the governments that are pleading or pledging more to right-wing nationalism, they are afraid to openly criticize the EU accession. They are afraid to openly give up of the EU accession. And they don't want to leave the impression to the citizens and to the voters that they're not interested in EU accession. To the contrary, they use the narrative that they are genuinely pro-Europeans, that they genuinely work in this area, but even though when sometimes they don't deliver the right results. And this is our hope. This is our field of battle that we need to take. I'll finish by saying what I think is necessary to do. Because first of all, we have to be aware that we need to be ready for a fight. for a political and societal fight that does not mean any violence, but it means fight for the minds and the hearts of the people, fight for our arguments, and fight for our new narrative, new progressive and pro-European narrative that will bring hope and bring optimism to the people that that option is much better and should be embraced rather than the radical far-right nationalism. When I say this, I think that all the political actors, including the political parties and the civil society, needs to be ready to fight for in what they believe, and to fight for the values they believe in. Because we can see how our friends and our like-minders fight in very severe conditions in Ukraine, in Moldova, in Georgia, in Belarus. We have heard what the colleague said about Belarus. And if they can do this fight in such difficult conditions, with such a high level of threat to their existence and their lives, I think it's much easier for us in the Western Balkans to fight for these values and to fight for European integration in which we believe in. I will finish by saying what we need. We need a clear plan for joining the European Union that will be approved and adopted by the European Union itself. We cannot succeed in the efforts without a clear and honest intention of the European Union to get us in the Union as members. I know that Montenegro and Albania are working very hard to finish the negotiations in a foreseeable future by the end of 26, or for Albania by the end of 27. And I think that that should be done by all the countries in the region, that we all need to make a clear plan how to finish the accession negotiations and how to make the necessary reforms as soon as possible. But that needs to be approved and embraced by the European Union as a real plan if we want us to succeed. And if we do that, that will give us fuel to fight on in each of our societies, to fight on in order to succeed and to stop the radical nationalism that has brought a lot of tragedies and a lot of unfortunate situations in our region in the Western Balkans. Thank you.